We can just chat for a second before we formally roll it out.
Yeah.
So we connected through, was it
Through
through
Kate.
Kate? Okay, I was going to say Kate, yeah, but I get confused as you can see. I get shows 2 hours off, and the guest still shows up. Doesn't that speak to the energy of what's happening in the world today?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It
Um,
also speaks to my galactic blueprint, Todd. I'm a timeless wizard in the dream spell. So I'm always moving in and out of the
I'm loving it.
dimensional realities. Yeah, like we
See,
all are.
yeah, we were just talking about this on the previous show about how, she was bringing up, we're talking more and more about this weirdness, the what's been perceived as weirdness and all this, and how really this is part of our reality. This
Mm,
is part of the fabric of our reality that we haven't given attention to because we haven't been present with ourselves, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this should be really cool. As we're
yeah.
1 minute and 11 seconds into the show, we've got a new friend, Heather Elizabeth, came by way of Kate Lumley, and yeah, so it's good to meet somebody new who is on the same band of frequencies that we're all on, the crazy train. Are we called the Soul Train? The Soul Train. Now, where do you live?
I'm in Austin,
Okay, you're
Todd.
not. Okay,
Yes,
okay,
yeah.
that explains your
Fellow
weirdness.
Texan, born and bred in Tejas.
All right, you're born and bred in
Yeah.
Austin.
I grew up in Dallas,
Okay,
so I spent
so
the
did I.
first 14 years of my life there, and then moved to Austin right before high school.
What part of Dallas?
Northwest Dallas, Preston Hollow, Walnut Hill
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I
area.
was in Irving. I graduated from
Okay.
Irving High School, 1980.
Okay, I thought you were in Corpus for
I
had
was
grown
born
up
in
in.
Corpus. I
Okay.
lived in Corpus till I was 10. Then I went to Houston for a year. Then I went to Irving until I
Okay.
was 18. Went to East Texas and Nacogdoches to go to school. Got kicked out. Went to Houston. Went back to Corpus for about 10 or 12 years, and then. But I lived in, working for different companies, and for myself, I lived in Dallas again. I lived in Austin. I lived in San Antonio. Um,
Wow. You
yeah.
made the
So
rounds in
yeah.
Texas. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know it like the back of my hand. Even West Texas. Uh, but welcome to the show. Thank you for coming in and sharing
Thank
space with
you.
us and honoring us with your
Thank
presence.
you. It's
Uh,
an honor for me. It really is.
there must have been some kind of telepathy going on. It's been getting thicker and thicker because I thought, I don't really know her, and for some reason I want to ask her, what planet are you from?
So I feel that I'm from Sirius, I'm Syrian. Feel very connected with that star nation. I feel connected with many of the star nations, but that one especially, I have ongoing communication and guidance from. Yes.
Do you kind of like when you look back from that point? Uh, do you see like a progression, like of your lineage or the places you've been, and do you see any like connection to from Sirius to like indigenous? Or do you identify with any
Oh,
indigenous?
yes. Yes. I have deep, deep respect and reverence for indigenous peoples and what they have gifted humanity throughout the ages, that I feel like we're finally paying attention to
Yeah,
that wisdom and how it can inform the path of conscious evolution that we're all being called to walk.
yeah. And what's your story? Were you always this weird, or did you have a wake up experience?
You know, Todd, I like so many of us, I feel like, I absolutely, this is who I am. And probably as a small being, as a child, I was very in tune with the truth of who I am. And then went through the process. Don Miguel Ruiz talks about domestication. So I was domesticated
Right.
and taught, to honestly, as an empath, numb myself out because I didn't have the support and how to navigate, who I am really. And so growing up in Texas in the 80s, just kind of went from experiencing the world as the mystical, magical, synchronistic reality that it is, like just, okay, how do I survive, this world? And so numbed myself out to the truth of who I am. And through a series of, well, let me back up because I'm feeling called to share, especially because we have the Texas connection, that at the age of 13, which is a very profound initiatory time for beings, I was actually gifted by a family friend a visit with a psychic in Dallas. And this was actually Shirley MacLaine's psychic. And so I went and sat with her, and she didn't sit there and tell me all about myself. She actually put me in a trance and had me recall past lives and also look into future possibilities. And needless to say, that was a profound expansion of consciousness that took place at a pretty young age, where I really had a peek into how interdimensional we truly are as beings. Wow. And so that I remember it just like it was yesterday. It was so informative for me. And then I dipped back into, okay, I'm an adolescent, navigating this crazy world that's teaching me to shut down my gifts and shut down these truths that I feel, are in my heart. And so kind of went back into survival mode for my adolescence and into my 20s. And then through a dark night of the soul, which seems to be a portal for many of us to awaken, when I really started doing some very deep shadow work, that awakened me to the profundity of who we are as spiritual beings.
How old were you when you really got into the shadow work?
So I dipped into it in my early 20s but it was right around my Saturn return. So right around 29, 30 is when I really started facing some deep, deep shadows, intergenerational patterns that I was just, unconsciously repeating in my own life. And really was literally down on my knees, in complete humility of, I know I can't keep going on like this, but I'm terrified to look at these parts of myself and also to let go of people, places, things that I had become very, very attached to, even though it was, obviously not serving. I mean, it was serving in a way because it was supporting an awakening, but it wasn't going to support me and really blossoming into who, I am capable of being. And it was terrifying. My ego was absolutely terrified to face that and to let go. And the part of me that I'd already gotten in touch with over the years, that's the soul, the I am presence. I was aware enough of that part of myself that I could fall into that part of myself and trust that I was going to be held through the darkness, through the pain and grief of letting go. And that was also the time when the Virgen de Guadalupe started coming to me. And she was the first experience for me of the Divine Mother, like the divine feminine presence.
Now
That
is this the Virgin of Guadalupe?
yes, see, yes, yes. So
What's your maiden last name, or what's your last name?
Neary,
Neary. Okay.
yes, yes. Um, yeah, so that very, very dark time, of course, was also the time where I was awakening to these parts of myself, and the true path of spiritual awakening that brought me such and continues to bring me such joy and bliss. And it took me being willing to face those shadows in the dark.
What
To
What were your biggest influences in your transformational journey in those times? You know, when the real brutal honesty of the soul initiations are in process. What were your biggest influences, and was there any? You know, sometimes people have little or big or many traumas that kind of like blow it up or start it off.
So for me at that time, Todd, the awakening to the divine feminine and beginning to connect with her and that part of myself through artwork, honestly, through images of the divine feminine was I have a mentor that had created, she's a shamanic visionary artist, and she had created a whole divination deck dedicated to the mythical goddess. So there were aspects of the Divine Mother across different cultures, timelines that are all part of this artwork. And that, for me, art, and honestly, I feel like for humanity, art is such a portal
Yeah,
for awakening.
yeah,
And it has always been that for me
yeah.
since I was a little girl. So that was a huge catalyst for me. The serenity prayer, honestly, I probably during that time was reciting the serenity prayer probably 100 times a day,
Yeah,
at least.
that's a powerful prayer. Some of those
It's,
really short ones are really good. You know,
yes,
like not.
the, yeah,
Um,
it doesn't need to be super complicated. It's actually fairly simple
Now,
when we allow it to be.
what year do you, or like what time period did you really start pulling in the Virgin Guadalupe and the Divine Feminine?
So that was around 2006
Oh wow. Okay.
was when that awakening, really began happening in profound ways for me.
Yeah.
Earlier on in my life, I was feeling really drawn to Mary Magdalene, and I never bought the whole narrative that the church was teaching
Right.
about her and Yeshua. And so that curiosity of like, who is she really? And I was very drawn to her strength and her grace
Yeah.
earlier on. And so that seed was already planted. And then, as I was moving through this dark night of the soul and the Divine Mother awakening happened, it was been full speed ahead.
That's a beautiful altar that you have behind you, and
Yes.
that looks like the Virgin of Guadalupe in there.
Yes.
Uh,
She's everywhere.
Well, I grew up in South Texas in Corpus, right, and it was very Catholic. I went to a Catholic school. I think we had, with my daughter, 6 generations of my family went to back into the mid 1850s. So it was very indoctrinating. But as a child, walking into these ornate churches with the silence of the Catholic Church, Mother Mary was the first thing I guess you would say in retrospect, that really showed itself or showed herself to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure you are aware of this, Todd, and our beautiful Ohana who are in this space with us, that, her origin story is, way beyond the Catholic
Oh, yeah.
narrative. Like, she's the dark Aztec mother. And when she appeared to Juan Diego, that was really a huge opening to this journey that we're all on now of reclaiming the divine feminine and balancing the divine feminine and the divine masculine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a shrine of her on our lands, and so many people will ask me, like, "Are you Catholic?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." Like, she's available to all of us. You don't
That's
have
right.
to.
There's no limitation, just like on
There's
this.
absolutely none. Yeah.
God, so many questions I have. Yeah, so many different things you're bringing up. We'll go here. So you've been tapped in 2006 and the whole dance that's commenced since then with the masculine and the feminine. Coming out of last year, I'll just say this. Where do you feel that balance of or lack thereof stands in like the collective field? Do you feel like that there's been some progress since 2006? Is the battle of the illusionary sexes over? And are we in the 1,000 years of peace? What are your thoughts on that?
I do thank you for that beautiful question, Todd. It is honestly mind blowing, heart blowing open to me to reflect back on, that point in my life. And then in 2011, I took a leap. I mean, so many of us take big leaps, big leaps, quantum leaps these days. And I took a pretty big leap to create a bridge from being a clinical psychotherapist into true, authentic embodiment of holding sacred space for the personal and planetary transformation that's taking place.
Wow.
So since then, 2011,
wow, that's huge. That's
I
huge.
have sat with, and it like honestly brings tears to my eyes. It's such an honor. I've sat with hundreds of souls who are awakening, both, one-on-one healing work. And when I say healing work, I'm a healer because I'm healing myself and holding sacred space for all of us to know that we're our own healers. So I've been blessed to sit in that sacred space with countless people in circles and ceremonies, one-on-one work. And the massive shifts that have taken place in that timing is amazing. It is amazing. And we can look out, into the collective reality right now. And yeah, there's a lot of darkness. There's a lot of darkness. And there's also so much light and beauty and awakening that's happening. And again, like I mentioned with my own story, it's not one or the other. In fact, the more the shadows and the darkness reveals itself, the more that we can offer love and compassion and healing to that and bring it to the light. And it is happening. The 1,000 years of peace, I do feel, is here, because it's a dream that lives in our hearts, and we can live it and be that peace we wish to see in the world. And the more of us that dedicate and devote, like you, my gosh, you've been on this path and you're so devoted to what you're being called to do. And the more and more of us that are willing to have the courage to show up and play our part, it's happening. And that, I know I keep using the word quantum, but it does feel like it's a quantum pace.
Yeah, you brought up 2011, and mine started May of 2011, May 30th, and it felt quantum. And then I didn't know what the story was, but the force of what you said in terms of I took a big leap, and I was getting you took a big leap. I wonder what month it was, whatever, but it does feel different. Or let me say this, and I think maybe people can relate to this. A lot of times when we get jolted, and many times, if not every time, we do take a big leap when we get jolted. It's like a wake-up experience, whatever you want to call it, or a phase, or whatever. I can say that, I've had many extraordinary experiences alone, many with Morgan, apparitions, the whole 9 yards. We've talked about it over the years. But this is the first time, to me, 2023, like coming out of the solstice, or coming out of that 10 years of the Mayan thing, ending on the, right?
Yes.
It feels quantum. It feels like the same type of kick in the ass, kind of like let's go, but it was very personal then, if that makes sense. And this time it feels more, I don't know, there's more of us here or something. It's more collective, in at least to some degree or another, and it makes it comfortable, if that can be possible. And it makes it realizable to me. I mean, I'm like, okay, now this is it. Like that was about me. That was about you. Now we're here all together. We all put our socks on the same way. Let's go to work.
Yes. Yeah. Aho. Yeah, it does. I was actually just the last couple of days, Todd, reflecting on that 10-year cycle of, the shift of the ages, of the solstice of 2012. And, it was so, funny. Our little minds are like, okay, well, this is the shift. It's happening. It's all going to happen. And then it's like, well, yes, it's happening. And there's a journey of the happening. And it does feel like, the last 10 years have been so much about like preparation. And like we could even look before 2012, like I'm sharing some about my story, that there was a lot being catalyzed within my being so I could fully, authentically be who I am out in the world. Honestly, for me, first and foremost, and then, how I can be of service. And I know many of us were going through that even leading up to 2012. And then there's been all of this preparation the last decade. And then now it's at that 10-year mark of the solstice of 2022. And it was like, okay, yes, we know there's many of us who have been doing this inner work and are devoted and dedicated to this path. And now we're all coming together as the unified field of love and compassion and grace that we are.
Right on.
And it's multi-generational, which is like brings me such joy. And I see that in many different, places. I'm seeing that. And then in my own microcosmic world, I see it happening in our gatherings here. We have elders, all the way to these young, I call them the young masters, the children, like all coming together. And it's the children. Beautiful.
that's to me the big X factor, right? Like not X factor, but like the I don't know. I remember 2012, like 2011 was the wake up. At 2012, like the purpose coding all starts coming in. Like, okay, now this is what the world's like, and then they're like, okay, what do I do? Like, okay, here's what you do. But I remember
Yes.
hearing you, and again, it felt very collective, even at that time, even though it was very personal. You all are going to bust your ass for 10 years, and then the kids are going to bring it up. And I never forgot that. Like the energy alone, as we are tuning forks, these children, these young children coming on, are affecting the field more and more every day, bringing clarity, memories. You know.
Yes. Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, what did like? How did? So you were a clinical psychologist, is that right?
So, licensed clinical social worker.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're
So
a
my
clinical social
background is
worker.
in social work.
Okay,
Yes.
so you were innately assisting people. Okay, you have the wake up, and how did that convert? Are you an energy practitioner? Do you did you? I guess you've incorporated your passion into it's all one thing.
It is.
It's a
It is.
lifestyle, the lifestyle, right? So
Yes, it
what do
is.
you what kind of stuff have you done, and what does it evolve to?
So, as I mentioned a little bit, you actually presence the indigenous First Nation people and their wisdom. And that's been a profound part of my awakening journey, probably for lifetimes.
Right.
And so a lot of my personal healing work that I give to myself, that it's ongoing, is shamanic based. I mean, that's what resonates in my soul. Because for me, it provides this beautiful container to be in this world and connect so consciously with Pachamama and all of the medicine that's here for us, and connect in with her natural cycles, and also with equal reverence for the cosmos
Right.
and the star nations and grandmother moon and grandfather sun and all of it. And so that's how I live my life. I mean, that is my life. And so that is, of course, how I am guided to hold sacred space with and for people, whether they're coming for one-on-one healing experiences and the group work that we do out here on our land. And I travel around as well, but we call this place in Austin the Shine Heart Quarters.
The
So it
Shine
really
Heart Quarters. Well, what is the Shine Heart Quarters?
okay. So Shine
Are
is
you online? Let's get some of that information. Hang on a second.
yes.
Okay, so do you have yeah, is what is it called? Shine Heart Online? Is that Shine Heart Ranch?
It's Shine Heather Elizabeth is my
Okay,
.1 is my website.
Shine
Heather
Heather
Elizabeth
Liz Beth, then
dot
what?
one
Dot
O-N-E.
the number one?
O-N-E,
Oh, I'm
yes.
sorry.
Spelled out.
I'm
Yes.
61. You got to give me a break here. Okay, so dot dot o one. Okay, ONE, and then what?
That's it.
Oh, that's it.
Shine Heather Elizabeth .1 is my website.
Oh,
And
here we
yes,
go. Let's see if that works.
I
Okay, yeah,
am,
oh yeah, we got it. We got it. Okay.
yeah.
So is
Yes, I am.
is the Shine Heart thing on here too?
So yes, so
Here,
there's, I
let's
mean,
go.
it's
Let's go here.
weaving in and out of.
Let's go here.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. We're gonna.
Let's go
Yeah,
in
there
here.
it is.
Let's go play over here and see what we got. So yeah, so you got a handbook for spiritual warriors. Changing the world is an inside job. I like your logo here. Is that your
Thank you,
logo?
a dear. So I actually, the guides tell me it's a symbol. It's an activation.
Uh-huh.
And a dear sister of mine, Lauren, downloaded, she channeled that symbol for shine in 2020, right as we were beginning what I call the Corona initiation.
I wish I could blow it up. So it is a, well, it's an octahedron, but all the way, it's a full, what do you call that? Because it's actually got, yeah, what is, that's two three-sided pyramids, I guess, right?
Yes. And it has the, so that is a multi-dimensional, like as sacred geometry is,
Yeah.
representation of, all of the balancing that's taking place within ourselves personally and collectively. Oh, that's a fun online event that's coming up.
What is that?
So I'm bouncing all around here, but I tend to do that. So I am part of a global leadership network called Sign. And I'm sure many of us are familiar with like Unify and Unity Earth, different global leadership networks. So Sign is very interwoven with all of that. And back in 2020, we began a 40 Days of Peace journey that always starts with MLK Day. And so we have an online convergence called Being Beloved Community.
Right on.
And that kind of kicks off this 40 Days of Peace. So we're still in the midst of the 40 Days of Peace. And Summer Joy Raymer, a dear sister of mine, and I offered a circle during the convergence that was actually on MLK's birthday. And we had a dance party and began exploring what are our personal seeds of peace that we're planting in this new cycle of 2023. And so that, what you just showed, is like the bookend. It's at the end of the 40 Days of Peace. Yeah. So
now that's online, and
that's online.
Do you do any? So, I know I've never. I don't think I've ever asked anybody from Austin. Maybe I have, but because we talk to people from all over the world. Little villages, living in the country, big cities, whatever. And it's always curious to me as what's it? Are you finding the same connections locally that you find online? So many of us, it's all online, right? But like Austin, I know has been progressive for a long time. It's gone a little commercial. The last few times I've been in there, it's kind of getting a little busy, dense, or whatever. But I know there's cool people there, and I know they've been implanted there for a long, long time. Do you have any community in the Austin area?
Huge.
All right.
Huge community. And I'll share with you, Todd, I feel like, and I'm sure some of your community probably knows who are, very tapped into the ley lines. I feel like Austin has a ley line with, honestly, Mount Shasta. Maybe, probably multiple. But there's definitely, this is a vortex here in Austin. And that story that I was sharing about my dark night of the soul and, this massive awakening that came from that time was right after I moved back to Austin. It was like I was living in Colorado, and it was like Spirit was like, okay, now you need to go to Austin and wake up. Because it was not happening. I mean, it was all happening how it's meant to. But
they had a bumper sticker, obviously. Austin's weird. What was it?
Keep Austin weird.
Keep Austin weird. But there was another one that was what you just said. What did you just say? Oh, you had to go to Austin to wake up.
Yes.
There was one there. There was two I saw there. One, the first time I ever saw Shit Happens. It was in Austin, and I just changed it to Shift Happens.
Yes.
But the other one was something to do with what you were talking about. I remember. I had to come to Austin to like the Truman Show kind of a connotation, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So
go ahead. So I've been blessed, incredibly blessed to be building community here. Right around that 2012 time, actually, the very first ceremony that I facilitated was on 12/12/12. And I had already shifted, that, like I was sharing, built that bridge from the psychotherapy practice to, full authentic presence of holding the sacred space for what was happening and is continuing to happen within ourselves. And then therefore, of course, on our planet. And from that time, that 12/12/12 ceremony, I've been on the path of building conscious community.
All right.
And both online and locally here in Austin and throughout Texas. I actually, the universe has guided me out of my comfort zone multiple times, both metaphorically
Don't
and
feel like the Lone Ranger.
no, I don't. Oh, I do not. And physically. So I have left this place. We call it the Sanctuary, Serrano Sanctuary. I actually spent some time in Corpus, lived there, was there for Hurricane Harvey.
Really?
And met some phenomenal people there.
Yes.
Who part of the community and went back to Colorado for a bit of time, right around the beginning of the Corona initiation. And I'm always called back here. And I feel like the ancestors call me back to be here and anchoring
Texas.
the light here.
Texas is a special place, man. It's a special place. It's been owned by six. It's been owned by 6 different countries, or been 6 different countries, including the Republic of Texas, which was a country. So you mentioned the shamanic, and you mentioned your connection, and it sounds like your devotion to the indigenous roots that we have. Do you identify with like you do with Sirius, with any particular tribes, and how did you approach your shamanic learning?
So, that's such an amazing question. So what I feel called to answer, the beginning of that, I could meditate on that question for a very long time, is the first time that I stepped onto the land that we're stewards of here in Austin. I felt a deep, deep connection with the Tonkawa First Nation who lived here. And I know many First Nation beings have lived on this land, have walked this land. And that particular group is who I feel like we're working very consciously and intentionally with at this now moment.
Right.
I also feel a deep connection with the Lakota people, with the Hopi people, and the shamanic path that I've been walking in this lifetime. A lot of my teachers have studied with Peruvian tribes, and also I have a deep, deep connection with the Maya people, and was activated into a technology called the 13 Moon Dream Spell galactic calendar in 2012. And that initiation opened me up to parts of myself that are home. I thank you for the affirmation.
That's what I'm saying. There's some stuff going on. I'm getting like multi streams here. I pulled up Tonkawa tribe. Keep going. Keep going.
So that initiation in 2012, summer of 2012. So it was like I needed to move through that initiation and remember this aspect of my spiritual lineage, of course, before the shift of the ages,
Right.
began taking place, the solstice of that year. And to really become what I would call a translator for this technology, because it is from the stars. It's galactic
Right.
language, and it is a ascension tool to support us all in this conscious evolutionary path that is very possible. That, honestly, I feel like millions of us at this point are walking it.
Oh yeah.
We know that there is a massive shift taking place within our own beings, within every aspect of this beautiful planet. And it's never happened before, ever, ever, ever. And just to not even think about that, because our heads can't even grasp
Yeah, our
what
heads
that
can't
means.
even wrap our
But
arms around
feeling
that.
it, feeling it,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and we can feel it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's happening. And so this technology really empowers us to align our consciousness with the consciousness of nature.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
And it's interesting too how you used to think like 10 years ago. Like I think 2012 wasn't just a important date or a year, but it was also seemed to coincide with it was like this blowing up of the internet, where it wasn't just the geeks and the young kids. It was like everybody got online, and it kind of followed the evolutionary pattern of this awakening of the last 10 years, right?
yes,
So back then you would think, yeah, we're going to get our memories back. But the memories are coming back in so many ways, like through different lines of communication and verbalization. Their feelings, their images, it could be, dreams, could be whatever. And for me, and very recently, and there seems to be a lot of threading, a lot of weaving, a lot of synchronicity taken on physicality. But for me, like in the last, I don't know, maybe since I've been back in Texas, but it really came online about 3 weeks ago. And it started with the Mayan. And I came across, went to find this thing about the Mayan, and I didn't really know what it was. And it was just the standout was that they had a ritual, or when they had ritual, and they called in the directions. They called in the 4 directions, but they called in 6 directions. And they included the cosmos and the underworld. And something lit in me. And I was like, whoa, I remember this, or whatever. That's what I mean. It's like this different type of memory. But anyway, long story short, it went through, like I could literally see the lineage of it, or maybe of me, I don't know, literally on the geography of it, coming up from Mexico into South Texas, in through Texas, making its way up towards the Sedona area, or the Four Corners, right? And so all these other pieces I'd gotten over the last 10 or 12 years all fell into place. Navajo, Hopi, the Anasazi, Apache, Comanche, but particularly, and that's what Tonkawa kind of set it off, because that was like something, oh wow, you remember that? You remember that? That was like, I remember this, like 5 years old, 6 years old, knowing some things. There's also some tribes in the South Texas area that I think Tonkawa's mentioned there, but I think they're more from that area you're in. But like the Lipan and Karankawa, I think is another one. And they all just like, I don't know, you can almost feel like the cell activation in you, like the memory in that capacity. So I don't think there's any coincidences. I think that the kindredness of it all is converging into one collective singularity, one memory.
Yes.
And this comet. Now, this comet, I was talking to my friend, we call her the Soulogy cosmologist. She's incredible, Julie Dara Roberts. She just, you'd have to listen to her. A very humble person too. But I had mentioned the comet, and as we were having a conversation back and forth, I realized in my head, you know what? I don't think I can only speak for myself, really realize the significance of this comet, given the metaphoric way that the universe speaks to us. Like there's something big. I mean, the Hopi and many other indigenous, I'm sure, said that it would be here, and when it would be here, and when the last time it came here.
Yeah. Yes.
So I think we're in for a really extraordinary ride from this point out.
Yes.
And there's always the question of the distortion. You mentioned that at the beginning of the show. How do you keep that in? How do you approach that? How do you approach darkness, what some people call evil? From your own vantage point, from how you navigate.
Yeah, thank you. So, a greeting, a Mayan greeting, that as soon as I heard this, it was another layer of oh yes, I'm home. This is truth.
Yeah.
And it is in Lakesh, which is I am another yourself. And we've heard, there's many different esoteric ways of playing with, we are one, we're all mirrors for each other, and it is I feel it to be a universal truth. And where we tend to get stuck is like I look at you, Todd, and I'm like, oh, you're another myself, and you're, what a beautiful mirror for me to look into. And where we sometimes get stuck is when we're looking into mirrors of what we would define as evil or the darkness, the shadow. And our mind wants to immediately jump into judgment and blame and the othering, the us and the them. And that's where, for me, speak to my personal journey, that's where my work really is. Because this is a part of me. Like if we're all interconnected and interwoven together, this is a reflection of myself. And it's an opportunity for me to offer love and compassion to these parts of myself, because anything that's in the shadow or in the dark is most likely holding a frequency of fear and holding a frequency of woundedness, feeling, unworthy, unlovable, all of the ways that we've been taught we should be feeling, simply because we're human, right? Mm-hmm. And something that I feel is really up for humanity in this now moment, as we continue to shift on this quantum pace, is to, for once and for all, to allow the transmutation of the othering to happen, the us and the them.
That's right. Yeah.
And again, it's like in the spiritual, esoteric, metaphysical world, we've been playing with this. We're one, unity, consciousness, all that. But there's a lot of work, that we still get to be present with, to get into these deep layers of how that programming, that us versus them programming, how deep it is.
Yeah, righteous. Yeah. And it's interesting because as we get a wider perspective, and more memory encoding comes in and the senses are coming on it stronger, to actually, take a look at what we're doing. like you said.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and if you look at what we're doing, it's a physical. Okay, so like what you were talking about, the whole thing that we've dealt with, like in a local level basis, family, friends, changes, leaps, downloads, dark nights of the soul. We go through all this. One thing that's happening is like is like is begetting like.
Mm-hmm.
So these soul tribe terminology, or these community, the intention of community that people have been talking about for so long and attempting and trying to get to, it does take work.
Yeah.
It takes literally a round table. Nobody's at the head of the table. Nobody. And the
No.
beehive intelligence is fully activated because it's a level of sharing that is an equilibrium of giving and receiving. Is the closest I could probably
Yes.
describe it. So, but to me, I just find it extraordinary because if I look at it like, okay, I'm the God watching this beautiful creation. I see all these people, and you can see the cells forming.
Yeah.
Like, so whoever wants to be a certain disposition, so to speak, whatever that may be, whatever their true self is, and remembering what you said, they're in us. There's a
Yes.
part of us that if we look at them and go, oh, I'm not like that, then we are denying a part of us. But so
Yes.
the true balance of this unity, to your point, is that within the unity itself, there are pockets of more homogeneous type energies. You might call those tribes or cells in the flower of life or whatever.
Mm.
It's almost like we're going from. Oh, well, Julie was on this morning. She's real in depth into yoga or whatever,
Mm.
the Vedas and all that, for many, many years. And she was talking about how the yogis were cosmonauts, and some of their writings pertain to the different disciplines and explanations. But this is in regard to going from like pure light body to this level, to that level, to this level, to the. And I was wondering, I wanted to ask her, I wonder if we're moving back to that, almost like an exhale, inhale. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And
Mm-hmm.
and so like, if it's really a unity, oneness thing, we're all going back to one, and we're going to lose every identity we had all the way over here and all the way back. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. There's a within the Mayan influence technology I was mentioning, the we call it the 13 moon dream spell galactic calendar. There are, it's filled with all of these archetypes. It's like an opportunity to be consciously living this myth, that we're constantly a part of, and this living story. And so it's filled with different archetypal imprints and human potentiality. And one of them it's called the white mirror, the yogi yogini. And its power is the power of endlessness. So like to weave with you what you were sharing about what Julie offered about the path of the yogi, that, that true yogini is able to be the witness and receive the reflections as opportunities to know thyself
Right,
on deeper and deeper levels. So every experience is a teacher.
right.
And that's our human
That's the
brain. We don't like that.
well, I
But
guess
it's
that's the
like,
part.
oh
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. I guess that's the part that's dying because, and I guess my friend calls 2023. He's an esoteric astrologer, among other things. Actually, he's very well versed, deeply well versed, like at a shamanic level, like you are in the Toltec. The
Mm.
Toltec. He knows the chiefs down there and all that. But he said, I'm going to call 2023 the death of the guru. And he didn't mean it in a negative connotation. He just meant that the self empowerment would get to a point that would support and validate, and be the reality of what you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah, and I feel like too, to his point, like we definitely dropped, or a better way to say it, we're spiraling up in this now moment to like a, an embodied experience of that truth. And that's also like the shifting from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age, the be your own guru, like you don't need everything you need is already within you. And
Right.
and like to your point, we all sit at a round table. Like there's
Right.
no hierarchy.
Right.
There isn't. That's all an illusion. And so there's this embodied experience of what that can be like
Right.
to live in a world, where
Now,
we're truly honoring one another's gifts
yeah.
and sharing and collaborating and co-creating from that place.
And and there's still the reality of polarity, and I mean
Mm-hmm.
polarity universally, right? Now,
Yes.
obviously, we're in a distorted polarity or duality, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
And so you wonder about the good friction that occurs in that torus field, right? And how that plays out in our present evolution with the way consciousness is expanding, how it's affecting physicality and manifestation and so many things, everything really. But I wonder what level, or let me say this: do you see the antagonist energy? I don't say antagonist. The frictional energy as we're making this evolution, everything is spiraling up. Do you see it something that will have a diminishing return as far as effect and distracting people, or do you see it kind of being a wild card and continuing to maybe even push us further, so to speak? And the reason I say this is because as we were talking about that 10-year period and the similarity that we have with really everybody here, where we went through probably many dark nights of the soul, on or before 2012 up to, now we're in this different atmosphere in 2023 that we're talking about. But there was definitely a initiation completion or something like that.
Mm.
And I wonder if there would be and again, everything's perfect, that we go through the same thing together, where our training was personally that humility that you can only find by really getting real and giving it up, and all the things that come with it. That if we actually are on a kind of an overall bend of doing that together, like how would you act? How different would you be if we were in Turkey today? How different would I be? You know what I mean? Like real,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Like roots,
Yes.
roots of the
Yes.
trees, roots of the earth, roots of the spirit
Yes.
flesh.
Yes.
Game on.
Yes. Yes. And to be able to know that, you know, our relations in that part of Mother Earth are going through that, and therefore we are as well on on the level that we are. Like we can feel it in a way that I don't think we've been able to feel it before. And
Yeah.
part of that is, the internet, like you're speaking to, like
Yeah.
it has connected us. Well, we are already connected, but it's given a
Yeah.
platform for that lived experience. But there's also this, the more that we're willing to be vulnerable and authentic and open our hearts fully to how interconnected and interdependent we are with all that is, we can feel
Yeah. That's true.
a sympathy
Well,
for that.
yes. Yeah, there's a sympathetic thread, there's an empathic thread, there's a telepathic thread. I mean, imagine for the sake of the discussion that the grid goes out today, and there's no electricity and no, obviously, everything else that goes with it, for an indefinite period of time. How would we relate? How would we communicate? What would our state be? Now imagine if that happened 20 years ago or pre-2012, before these connections were being made on the internet at a wider frequency. I think there'd be a huge difference, and I think that what the internet, one of the great things the internet's done is we're able to feel the energy of people through their words, through their images, through their frequencies of expression. I mean, you see people in their highs and lows, and you see people, including myself, people looking right at their shadow based on the stuff they're putting out. I mean, the information is gold. It's golden. But, I mean, I think it accelerated our growth, and it increased our capacity, or assisted us in increasing our capacity to take on more and more information at a quicker and faster pace, like when we were kids. But it's a whole collective access.
Yes.
It's fascinating times. So, okay, a little bit about the local in Austin, because I have some, networking, connections, gatherings. But I've always known that somewhere probably between like New Braunfels and Austin area. Now, are you in the northern Austin area by chance?
We're northwest.
Okay.
We're Lake Travis is literally right behind us. 10-minute walk.
I lived in Lago Vista.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, like your community, is it like a kind of a network type thing? Are there places that, or a place that you known where there's gatherings, like a venue with a stage or stuff like that? I mean, is it, not to go into detail, but it's like, do you have that level of
Yes. So our land, I mentioned, we call it the Shineheart Quarters, right here in Lake Travis area. This is, I would say, a hub. We have ongoing gatherings out here. I'm about to post later on today.
How big is the place?
So we have, we're stewards of half an acre of land here.
Okay.
And so, ideally we offer our gatherings on the land. So we're spending a lot of time outside on the land. And then there's a building that we call the sanctuary, right, that we have our indoor ceremonies and gatherings at.
Wow.
And we've had live music. We've had
all kinds
of.
How do I? So grab a couple of tents, put a little stage together, low key, Soulogy style, stuff like that. That kind of stuff is so cool. First of all, because of and it can be 20 people, it can be 100 people, like at a Soulogy, but the what's the right word? The fellowship. The frequency, like the intention, the love, everything just kind of like lines up. And then you have the, like usually you have people like might speak or do a ritual. You might have some drumming, you got some music, you got some freestyle, whatever. And it's just always such a lot of times I notice when things like that occur, there'll be a little bit of a, like a catalyst for some shadows to come up for people because it's such a blast of light. Yes.
Yeah, which that's part of the good work, right?
Well, I know some really great. I mean really high level, long time musicians that I've met through the work that I do that are in that area. And so I've told them, we've talked before, and there's people in San Antonio and Dallas, I think, that would come, and nothing to, and maybe not even there, just depending on what kind of interest there is. But it's a good area, and you're right. There's a lot of power in that area. It's not just there out of just coincidence. But
It is not. And I feel it to be anchoring medicine frequencies in this part of the world.
yeah,
And then we can look at this part of the country and Texas itself. It's like a stabilizing
yeah.
energy. I feel like Texas might have imploded by now if
Texas,
if Austin was not what it is. And something that's
yeah,
interesting that I've noticed, Todd, to your point of, yeah, it's shifted a lot, and there is more like noise here, like and all of the things, and the heart of Austin is still here.
that's
That
right.
weird,
That's
keep
right.
Austin weird, is still here,
That's right. That
and I
song,
don't think it's gonna leave,
that song,
thankfully.
deep in the heart of Texas, deep. Oh man, there's so many great Texas songs. I think there's a lot of truth to that. Um,
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's like Texas is a very special place, and if you look at the history, the orchestrated history and the real history, it doesn't really matter. The role of it is incredible.
Yeah.
The energy of it is incredible. I mean, it basically created this country. If you look at the nexus points that occurred and what the revolution and independence of Texas did, but again, we're in this circle to pick up the pieces, the cookie crumbs that we left. And yeah, I think there's something to be said when these things happen, big or small. Typically, and actually, I think really 100 people is plenty. 100 and less is still an intimate thing, especially if it's more than a one-day thing, or if it's an all-day thing. It could still be considered that you meet a lot of people. But more importantly, we talk about embodiment a lot, and most of us have either been hermits or had moments of reclusion, and but I think people, it's time to come out, and there's a great uh, positive win-win-win when there's a gathering on the land,
Yes.
and you have that mix of openness and universality,
Yes.
that actually anchors further embodies beyond
Yes.
ourselves, right?
Yes.
Do you know
And there,
any? Do you do any like songs, chants,
do I do any songs, chants,
prayers?
mantras?
Well, I mean, like, do you have like a before we get out of here? Do you have like a prayer, an indigenous prayer, or any type of thing that you might want to share with us? And by the way, I'd love to do this again, and I'd love to meet you in person, and
Yes.
if anything does happen in the area or whatever. But yeah,
Yes, Todd, I'm incredibly honored and grateful to know you. And on behalf of this community, I feel very called to bow deeply to you and your service and your dedication and devotion to what you know you're here to do and be. So thank you for that. Thank you
thank,
for you.
thank you, thank you.
I do have something I would like to share. So today within the galactic calendar is what is known as Kin 11, blue spectral monkey. So that's an imprint, a code. And this code has not been on the calendar for 9 months. So then that 9-month, 9-moon gestation cycle is a very significant cycle within natural time. And blue spectral monkey is the galactic signature of Dr. Jose Arguelles, who was the organizer of the Harmonic Convergence of 1987. And he is also the being who channeled this technology, the dream spell. And he's in the spirit realm. He's been in the spirit realm since 2011. And he is an ancestor, and he's a precious guide for myself and many, many, many of us.
Wow.
And it's very synchronistic that we're gathering today on his code.
Now,
if you remember, we were going to meet last week. His galactic signature is what we call them.
Okay.
It's basically the code that whatever was occurring on the galactic calendar the day of your incarnation,
right,
is what is known as your galactic signature.
Okay.
So this is his galactic signature. So for the sake of time, I won't read this whole thing, but I do want to read part of the last transmission that he wrote. Is called Manifesto for the Noosphere. And I would like to read...
Manifesto for what?
The Noosphere. The Noosphere is
How do you
the
spell
thinking... That? It's Noosphere.
N-O-O-S-P. Oh, I got you.
E-R-E. This is the thinking layer of Mother Earth. Okay. And what we're moving from the biosphere, technosphere to the noosphere.
Okay.
And so with deep humility, I'm called to share this with all of us from this transmission of his. You are not separate from me, though you may think that you are. You are one with me. Your mind and mine, the mind of the earth, are one and the same mind. And this one mind is called the noosphere. The mind of the earth wrapped like an invisible mantle over the whole of my body, penetrating every living thing, endowing each with a ray from the spectrum of living consciousness that spreads from the center of the galaxy to our sun, to me, and to all of you who dwell on my surface. You are but a single planetary organism. All life is one, as I am one indivisible whole. For those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, and hearts that know from within, the time has come for you to hear my manifesto for the noosphere. Listen again and recite with me. I am one with the earth and myself are one mind. I am one with the earth and myself are one mind.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more I could read, but I want to honor the time.
Now, let me just ask you for future reference. So, because many people, I think at a minimum, have heard the name and the association with the harmonic convergence. We've had a few people come on here that are pretty well versed, as you are. Do you? Maybe we can have a discussion where we can kind of, if you knew or what you know, how that all evolved. What was he tapped into? Who was he tapped into? How did that come about? It sounds like it was very much similar to like Matthias De Stefano and what he just did last year. You know, going to 57 countries and being guided and actually documenting it. I mean, it's a real interesting thing when you start to see people's pathways, and they just have a wider berth of awareness in the linear. You know, like for instance, you know, when David Icke came on the first time, and I explained to him, the audience up front, I said, you know, that we've all pretty much had the same type of experience you've had because of his he's going along in life, has a wake up experience at Machu Picchu, and then everything, the whole gamut of being estranged from the family, being ridiculed, being weird, and the whole thing, the voice, the guidance. I'd like to dive into Jose Arguello. Would that be something you'd be interested in doing later on?
I would be honored.
Okay.
I would be honored.
Yeah,
Yes.
that would be cool. Yeah, my friend Ty, he has talked about the Toltec a bit, and some of the really more of the esoteric astrology. But I think it's a good, like Julie today with the cosmology, which is kind of her compilation of her life's, journey, as it transforms into or translates into the lessons that we can offer each other and the code we can offer each other. Because you're right, it's the lessons. I mean, you can teach me everything you want about Mayan and everything but at the end of the day, I've got to experience it. You got to experience it. We have to experience every single thing to know it.
Yeah.
I guess
yes, to practice it. Have it be honestly, at this point, day to day, moment to moment embodiment of, the ways that we connect in with the truth of who we are.
Yeah.
We, all of us. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. All of us is a lot bigger than the human beings too.
Yes.
Everything is sacred.
Everything.
Doesn't matter if we're, the avatars made avatars that made avatars that made avatars, and we're in the 144th degree of inception. It's all sacred. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, that round table has many more than just two-legged sitting at it.
Yeah. I talk to everything.
Yeah.
I talk to my phone. I talk to my car. I talk to everything. Every single thing I can find. I talk to Anubis. He's my partner. It was great meeting you. Thank you again for coming in.
Wonderful to meet you, Todd.
All blessings to you and yours and all your endeavors. And I'll see you again in 2023. Yes. And
absolutely.
Let's
see you in Texas.
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah. We'll see how things go. Everything's got to be organic in 2023 as we expand.
Yes.
We'll be back later.